Every weekday started exactly the same for me. I left my apartment at 7:10. Walked 3 blocks to the coffee shop. Caught the 7:35 train downtown. For almost 2 months, I never missed that routine. I only realized someone else had memorized it after I found my own schedule written in someone else's handwriting. People like to say routines make life easier, and they're right. You stop thinking about the little things because your day practically runs itself. You park in the same spot, order the same coffee, leave work at the same time. It feels harmless, comfortable even. I never considered that the more predictable I became, the easier I was to study. Looking back, I don't think the man following me chose me because of who I was. I think he chose me because I was easy to learn. I didn't understand that until a few years ago, when my normal routine became the reason I almost didn't make it home. At the time, I was 28 and working as an accountant in downtown Minneapolis. It wasn't exciting work, but it paid well, and I liked the consistency. My fiancée, Rachel, worked evenings at a hospital, so most mornings I was on my own. Every Sunday night, I'd fill out a blue weekly planner with meetings, errands, gym sessions, and reminders. It helped me stay organized. I never imagined someone else might be organizing their week around mine. The first thing that felt strange happened at the coffee shop. The barista smiled when I walked in. "Running late today?" I looked at the clock. It was 7:14. "No," she laughed. "The other guy said you'd be here by now." I frowned. "What other guy?" She pointed toward the empty corner table. "He left a couple minutes ago." I assumed she'd mistaken me for someone else. It wasn't worth thinking about. A few days later, I left work early because one of my afternoon meetings had been canceled. As I crossed the street toward the parking garage, I noticed a man sitting on a bench. Baseball cap, gray jacket, reading a newspaper. When I looked up again after unlocking my car, he was watching me over the top of the paper. The moment our eyes met, he lowered it and walked away. It felt odd, but cities are full of strange people. I forgot about him by the next morning. Then little things started happening. Someone always seemed to leave the coffee shop right before I arrived. A man stood at the opposite end of the train platform every Tuesday. The same figure appeared near the gym parking lot on Thursday evenings. Never close enough to speak. Never doing anything illegal. Just there. I started wondering if I was imagining it. Rachel told me I was probably noticing ordinary strangers because I'd become paranoid after the coffee shop incident. Honestly, I hoped she was right. The following Monday proved she wasn't. I got home from work and found a plain white envelope tucked beneath my apartment door. No stamp, no address, just my first name written across the front. Inside was a single sheet of paper. It wasn't a threat, it was a schedule. My schedule. Monday, 7:10, leave apartment. 7:18, coffee. 7:35, train. 12:15, a lunch. 5:42, gym. The times were exact, even my lunch breaks. At first, I thought someone at work was playing a cruel joke. Then I turned the page over. On the back were tomorrow's times, including a dentist appointment I'd only entered into my blue weekly planner the night before. No one else knew about it, not even Rachel. I called the police. The responding officer listened carefully, but admitted there wasn't much they could do. No threats. No. Anyone asking for money? No. He sighed. Document everything. That wasn't very reassuring. The next morning, I ignored my usual routine. Instead of going to the coffee shop, I drove straight to work. Halfway there, I checked my mirror. A dark blue sedan turned when I turned. I changed lanes. It changed lanes. I exited the highway early. So did it. I pulled into a crowded grocery store parking lot instead of my office. The sedan kept driving. For a second, I felt relieved. Then I noticed it parked across the street. The driver never got out. He just sat there, watching. I stayed inside the store for nearly 40 minutes. When I finally came out, the sedan was gone. That evening, Rachel insisted I stay at her apartment instead of mine. Before we left, I wanted to grab a few clothes. The moment I unlocked my apartment door, I knew someone had been inside. Nothing was missing, but my blue weekly planner was no longer on the kitchen counter. It was open on the dining table. Tomorrow's page had been folded neatly in half. Rachel whispered, "Call 911." I didn't touch anything. Officers searched the apartment. There were no signs of forced entry. No broken windows. No damaged locks. Whoever had entered used a key. Management checked their records. Only 3 master keys existed. All 3 were accounted for. Detectives dusted the planner for fingerprints. They found mine, Rachel's, and one unidentified set that matched no one connected to the building. For the next 3 weeks, I stayed with family while the investigation continued. The police never identified who had been entering my apartment. They recommended changing every lock anyway. I also stopped following the same daily routine. Different routes, different coffee shops, different train stations. Eventually, the strange sightings stopped. Life slowly returned to normal. Almost. A year later, I was cleaning out a storage box when I found my old blue weekly planner. Tucked between 2 pages was a small receipt I had never seen before. It was from a coffee shop across town. The date matched one of the days I had called in sick and never left my apartment. Written across the back in blue ink were 6 simple words. "You changed your schedule too late." I handed the receipt to detectives. They couldn't recover any fingerprints. No surveillance footage existed anymore. The case eventually went cold. These days, people joke that I'm overly careful. They're probably right. I don't keep routines anymore. I leave at different times, take different roads, even order different coffee, because I learned something that still unsettles me. If a stranger knows exactly where you'll be tomorrow, they've probably been watching you for much longer than you realize. Most people think a locked apartment means they're safe. I used to think that too. You lock the door, check it once, maybe twice, and stop worrying about it. Apartments feel secure because there are neighbors on every floor, security cameras in the lobby, and key fobs that supposedly keep strangers out. But all those layers of security depend on one simple assumption, that you're the only person with access to your home. I didn't question that until a few years ago, when I realized someone else could unlock my front door just as easily as I could. At the time, I was 27 and working overnight as a pharmacy technician in Louisville. My shifts ran from 9 p.m. until almost 6 o'clock every morning. Living alone suited me. My apartment building was quiet, and I liked coming home after sunrise when everyone else was leaving for work. Nothing ever happened there. At least, that's what I believed. The first thing that bothered me seemed too small to matter. I came home one morning and found my shoes lined up perfectly beside the door. I never lined them up. I usually kicked them off wherever I happened to stop. I stared at them for a second, then laughed at myself. Maybe I'd done it without thinking. A few nights later, I noticed the television remote sitting perfectly centered on the coffee table. Again, not something I'd ever do. I blamed my own bad memory. Working nights can make you feel disconnected from time. I figured I was just tired. Then I found my brass apartment key lying on the kitchen counter. The problem was, I always kept it clipped inside my work bag. I actually emptied the bag onto the floor looking for it before realizing it was already inside my apartment. That made no sense. I called my sister. "You ever do weird things when you're exhausted?" She laughed. "All the time." That answer made me feel better. For about 2 days. Then the smell started. Fresh coffee. Every afternoon. I didn't even own a coffee maker. I used instant packets because they were quicker before work. Still, every time I woke up, my apartment smelled like someone had brewed an entire pot. I checked every outlet, every cabinet. Nothing. The smell would disappear within minutes. One Friday morning, I came home earlier than usual because our computer system had crashed. It was only 4:40 a.m. As I stepped out of the elevator, I noticed my apartment door wasn't fully closed. It was resting against the frame, unlocked. I froze. I knew I'd locked it before leaving. Slowly, I pushed the door open. Nothing looked disturbed. The living room was quiet. The bedroom was empty. Then I heard water dripping in the bathroom. The faucet had been left running, just enough to make a steady drip, drip, drip. I shut it off and immediately called the building manager. He inspected the lock. "No damage." "You sure you locked it?" "I know I did." He replaced the lock anyway. I felt embarrassed for making a fuss. Until 3 nights later. When I got home, the replacement lock had been unlocked too. This time, I didn't go inside. I called the police from the hallway. 2 officers searched the apartment. Nothing stolen. Nothing broken. No fingerprints except mine. One officer asked if maintenance had entered recently. The manager insisted no one had. Then another resident overheard us. She quietly said, "My plants keep getting watered when I'm out of town." We all looked at her. I thought my daughter was doing it. She wasn't. Police expanded their search. By the end of the week, 4 tenants reported similar incidents. Nothing valuable was missing. Just small things. Curtains opened. Chairs moved. Dishes washed. Lights left on. It was unsettling because whoever was entering wanted people to notice. Detectives checked security footage from the lobby. Every resident appeared entering and leaving as expected. Nobody suspicious. Then one detective requested footage from the underground parking garage. A man wearing a maintenance uniform appeared almost every afternoon. He carried a toolbox. No one questioned him. He always nodded politely at residents. The building manager didn't recognize him. Neither did the maintenance company. Police finally traced him after enhancing images of the van he drove. It turned out he had worked for a locksmith years earlier and had stolen dozens of unregistered master keys before leaving the company. He'd been entering apartment buildings across 3 counties, letting himself into homes simply because he could. Investigators believed he wasn't stealing valuables. He enjoyed knowing he could enter people's lives without being noticed. He was arrested 2 weeks later. Inside his storage unit, detectives found labeled envelopes. Each contained spare keys, receipts, handwritten notes. Mine included a photograph of my apartment taken from inside the living room. The timestamp showed it had been taken while I was working one night. Even after his arrest, I couldn't stay there. I moved within a month. Changed cities. Changed jobs. Changed every lock I owned. The detective returned my belongings after the trial. Mixed in with them was my old brass apartment key. It had a tiny scratch near the head that I recognized immediately. I keep it locked in a drawer now. Not because it still opens anything, but because every now and then, I'll wake up in the middle of the night, convinced I smell fresh coffee drifting down the hallway. And for one terrifying second, I still expect to find my front door unlocked. 3 years ago, I was working as an assistant manager for a sporting goods store in Raleigh, North Carolina. My schedule changed every week, but I usually worked late afternoons and evenings. I lived alone in a quiet neighborhood about 20 minutes from work. The first time I noticed the car, it was parked across from my townhouse. Black sedan, tinted windows, no front license plate, nothing else stood out. The next afternoon, it was parked in the exact same spot. I figured it belonged to a neighbor. 2 days later, I stopped at a grocery store after work. As I pushed my cart toward my truck, I noticed the same black sedan parked 3 rows away. I recognized it because of a faded, cracked pine tree air freshener hanging from the rearview mirror. One corner had broken off, making it hang at an angle. It caught my attention because it looked like it had been there for years. Still, I told myself I was overthinking it. Black sedans aren't exactly rare. A week passed. Then I drove across town to meet my younger brother for lunch. As I pulled into the restaurant parking lot, the sedan was already there. Same air freshener. Same tinted windows. No one inside. I mentioned it to my brother. "You've been watching too many crime shows." He laughed. I laughed too, mostly because I wanted him to be right. After that, I started noticing it everywhere. Outside the gym, near the gas station, parked at the edge of my work parking lot, always close enough to see, never close enough to prove anything. The driver never approached me, never honked, never spoke. Sometimes the car disappeared for days. Then it would suddenly reappear somewhere that made no sense. One Friday night, I deliberately changed my routine. Instead of driving home, I headed toward another shopping center nearly 15 miles away. I parked, waited, nothing. For the first time in weeks, I relaxed. Then my phone buzzed. It was my neighbor. "Are you expecting someone?" "What do you mean?" "There's a black car parked across from your house." I felt every muscle in my body tighten. I was 15 miles away. How had the car reached my neighborhood before I could? I drove home immediately. The street was empty. My neighbor swore the sedan had pulled away less than 5 minutes earlier. The next morning, I reported everything to the police. The officer listened carefully, but explained that repeatedly seeing the same car wasn't enough to open a criminal investigation. "If they threaten you or trespass, call us immediately." That afternoon, I bought a dash camera. 2 days later, it finally captured something useful. I was driving home after closing the store when the sedan pulled out from a side street behind me. It stayed 4 car lengths back. Every turn I made, it made. I purposely missed my usual exit. So did the sedan. I entered a residential neighborhood I had never driven through before. It followed. I circled the same block twice. Still there. At that point, I stopped pretending. Instead of going home, I drove directly toward the nearest police station. The moment the station came into view, the sedan made a sudden U-turn across double yellow lines and sped away. My dash camera recorded the entire thing. Police reviewed the footage and were finally able to identify part of the rear license plate. A detective called me 3 days later. The plate belonged to a stolen vehicle recovered months earlier. Whoever had been driving it was using cloned plates from abandoned cars. The investigation uncovered security footage from several businesses I'd visited. The same sedan appeared outside 6 different locations over nearly a month. Sometimes it arrived before I did. Sometimes it left after I was gone. But every video had one frustrating thing in common. The driver's face was never visible. Detectives believed someone had been tracking my schedule long before I noticed the car. They never discovered why. No threats were sent. No demands were made. No one ever tried to contact me. After that, I moved to another city, changed jobs, sold my truck, started taking different routes everywhere. Eventually, the sightings stopped. At least, I thought they had. Last winter, I was cleaning out the glove compartment of my old truck before selling it. Tucked beneath the owner's manual was a parking receipt from a shopping center I had never visited. The timestamp matched a day when I had taken my truck to a repair shop and left it there all afternoon. Written across the back of the receipt, in black marker, were 5 words. You noticed too early. Police tested the receipt. No usable fingerprints. No DNA. No surveillance footage remained from that day. I still drive. I still check my mirrors. But I also pay attention to parked cars now. Especially black sedans. Because I learned something that still keeps me awake on long drives. The most dangerous person following you doesn't always need to stay behind you. Sometimes they're already waiting where you're about to arrive.